Welcome to Empowering Plans, a show dedicated to identifying waste and undue expense in the health benefits industry, discovering ways to maximize benefits while minimizing costs, and empowering employers, administrators, and consultants to emphasize, once again, the benefit in benefit plan. Today's episode is brought to you by the Phia Group, empowering plans since 1999. Now here are your hosts, the Phia Group's own CEO, Adam Russo, and Senior Vice President and General Counsel, Ron Peck.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Empowering Plans with the Phia Group. This is not your host, nor is it your co-host, but I am your producer, Patrick Santos. And with me today, as always, is our CEO and co-founder, Adam Russo. Say hello, Adam.
Hello, Adam.
And our Senior Vice President and General Counsel, Ron Peck.
I'm a little thrown right now. I don't know what to say.
What's going on?
You know, it's
Like Pat just took over.
Pat the Man Santos has a microphone. Things will never be the same again.
I stopped breathing. So he's counting down, and right when I was supposed to start talking, saying, hello, everybody, he literally just jumps in. Do you notice how we did two, and then he didn't do one?
Yeah.
He just went right into it?
He messed with my mojo.
Wow. Pat, your voice, though, sounded like you were petrified. Am I wrong there, thinking that?
Well, it was like a little
100%
baby,
nerves.
a little
He
baby
was-
egg coming out. You know,
Did
little
you hear
baby.
his voice?
Oh, yeah.
Folks, replay it and listen to Pat's voice. I mean, it's as if he's about to get shot in a firing squad.
But you know what? I don't think he's nervous about speaking on the podcast, Adam. I think he's nervous about stealing your line.
Maybe. I mean, I was very impressed with the proactiveness, but I mean, the delivery was weak. Ron, let's be honest. I mean, Pat should just stay a producer. People vote hashtag Pat stay the producer. Santos. I mean, producer Pat is great, but he is not, I would say, he wouldn't be a good host for like a game show, like the intro.
Adam, little baby bird in its nest watches mama and daddy bird flying and thinks it can do it, but the first time it
And
always
he
falls,
can't.
you know. Watching is
C+
one thing.
performance?
See, you know what? For a first time, it wasn't too bad there, Pat. You're the man.
Folks, you know what? I'm thinking after this, Faces of Phia, by the way, we're doing a Face of Phia with producer Pat Santos. For the first time ever, has a microphone right in front of him. I'm thinking we might want to keep that mic there forever because, you never know. Pat might just have this moment of brilliance where he decides to chime in on a subject and we just are taken aback. And because we're in shock by the fact that we actually hear his voice, Ron, he could be free to talk for about hours.
It's true. You know, a lot of the radio shows, the producer has that mic in the box,
Right.
Yeah, behind
We hear
the
it
glass.
on sports radio all the time.
There you go.
Right? And we hear that all the time. So
Doing fact checks. Yep.
I think we've made an improvement to our show today by adding a microphone to Pat. And let's see how many cobwebs that microphone has on it by the time this entire Face of Phia series is over.
I
man.
already picked off like 12 cobwebs off this one mic.
Perfect. So, speaking of, folks, obviously you could tell this is a Face of Phia episode. It is the most anticipated one we've ever had. People have been dying to know if Pat even has a voice. I didn't recognize that voice. I mean, do you recognize his voice? I've literally never heard him speak.
Yeah, I recognize the voice. You know, usually it's complaining about all the editing he has to do after our shows.
Well, he doesn't complain to me. I think he's afraid to.
Absolutely correct,
But,
Adam.
folks, what I can tell you is Pat Santos, he is our guest today. Say hello, Pat.
Hello, Pat.
Wow. That voice is like, it's made for radio.
It's a little melodious. I like
What do you
it.
think? I like it, right? It's
You
like
know?
those slow songs. Like there was a station that we used to listen to when I was a kid called Magic.
Yeah.
106.7. It was
It's
like
pretty
slow
smooth,
jams.
smooth.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
R&B.
I
That's
remember
it.
that.
Yeah, it was a great station. Folks, Pat Santos. Pat, how old are you now, if you don't mind telling our audience?
I am now 30.
Okay.
Dirty 30. Way
Dirty
to go,
30.
Pat.
Pat is another one of these folks here at Phia. Do you know, folks, if you've listened to the previous Face of Phia, you'll notice a lot of people in their late 20s, early 30s who have been here for like decades. Pat has been at Phia since 2006. Again, so you were 17, 16?
17, yeah.
So how did it happen that you ended up getting a job here?
Oh, that's a funny story within itself.
Oh, let's hear it.
So at the time,
Pull
I
up
had been
a chair.
working at Stop and Shop.
So were you supporting the strikers that were just on strike at Stop and Shop?
Yeah.
Great, good to know.
He stands with his fellow man.
Right, so you were working at Stop and Shop in 2006.
Yes, I had been working there.
Unsatisfied with bagging groceries.
Basically, cashier, bagger at the time.
See, I thought you were cutting the meat.
No, not
No?
that lucky.
You weren't cutting the cheese? That wasn't you? All right. Keep going, buddy.
So at the time, I'd been almost working a year there. And my cousin at the time, he's still my cousin.
At the time, he was your cousin. He is since
That's the-
deceased?
I've
What's happened to him?
I've divorced my cousin.
Well,
It didn't work out.
my cousin at
No,
the
he's
time.
gone.
I would love to find out what that means.
He's a great guy, but we didn't really see eye to
Pat,
eye.
you gotta
No.
watch your words, man. You know that Ron and I just dying to pounce on you. We're like a tiger hiding in the bushes.
We are attorneys. Semantics
You guys are attorneys
our
on a
lives.
podcast,
that's
nonetheless.
Okay, Pat, so this cousin of yours,
So
the
my
former
cousin,
cousin.
former cousin, calls me up one day asking if I wanted a job over at a friend's business. Little did I know this was Mike Bronco.
Ooh, our former, what was he? CFO? Mike now relaxes on the couch watching Jerry Springer reruns. I mean, that's what he does all day, basically.
Let me just clarify. Michael Bronco is not your cousin or former cousin. He's the friend of your former cousin.
Yes, this is correct.
Okay.
Now, was your former cousin working here at the Phia Group?
No.
So he was out there recruiting people on behalf of the Michael Bronco, but refused to work here himself.
From the sounds of it, yeah.
That didn't raise any red flags for you?
At the time, no, not really.
It was a
All
good
right.
job for you. It's a good job for you, but not for your former cousin.
Yeah, he knew
Right.
better. I got you. That's where I'm
Well,
going.
Pat has been here for 13 years, so.
He doesn't know anything.
Okay, so what happened, Pat?
So I said, I've been at Stop and Shop for almost a year, but, I'll give it a shot. Check it out.
It's the kind of
And
enthusiasm I like in my recruits.
So I went in for my interview with a prior employee, and
A lot of formers. Everything's former. Former cousin, former employee,
Former owner.
former owner.
Former owner.
There isn't a single person you've mentioned who actually still alive.
It's the touch of death.
Okay.
and I ended up being hired as a file clerk.
The infamous file room. Ron, there could be books written about what happened in the Phia file room. I can't even imagine. This file room does not exist anymore, correct, Pat?
This is correct. Long
so
gone.
What did you do in the file room?
Pulled cases for the numerous case handlers that we had in the office.
How much time was spent filing versus not doing anything? In all honesty, Pat, the statute of limitations has run, Pat, so you won't get in trouble and tell us the truth. What percentage of productivity would you say was going on in the file room at the time?
And thinking about filing
Right.
is
Does
not
not count.
working, okay? I just want to
Right.
make that
Okay.
clear.
Actual working in the file room, what percentage would you say the average file clerk person worked?
I would say probably about 20% actual work.
20%. And we're still in existence today. So 80% downtime. That's horrible.
Yeah. You want to hit at least 250.
250?
Once you drop to 200,
I mean, that's like below Mendoza line
you're
numbers.
back to the minors as far as I'm concerned.
So, Pat, are you basically telling us that since 2006, you've been in the file room, then case evaluation, then case support, then overpayments, then claims analysis?
Yeah, that's
5
basically laundry
roles.
list.
Have you ever worked anywhere else but Phia and Stop and Shop?
Nope, those are the two.
So your entire history of employment, where you're trying to compare how good or bad this job is comparing the Phia Group's experience to your work as a bagger at a grocery store.
Bagger cashier.
I hope we're an improvement.
I'd say so.
Ron, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, he can compare all the different jobs he's had here at the Phia Group. You know, there's a lot of that internal strife you can compare. And you
Very
would
true.
probably say that podcast producer is by far the best job you've held here so far, yeah?
Top tier.
So, Pat, obviously you get fan mail all the time from around the world. You know, one of the things that people want to know is, who is Pat Santos? Who is the real deal? What is his background? What's his story? So here's what I've seen. You went to Bridgewater State University. You attended. Did you graduate?
I did not finish.
You did not finish. Hence the word attended. Was it sort of like your file clerk experience? Was it 20% of the time spent at Bridgewater actually going to classes, 80% downtime? What was the reason for your not finishing your degree? Just wanted to be one of these like hipster guys where you don't have to finish college and yet be successful in life?
Well, I was more in a limbo decision of what I wanted to do. At first, I wanted to do teaching, but after seeing a friend that's far more qualified than I am, far more intelligent, has a way bigger knowledge of history than I do, seeing him struggle and not even get a job. It
So
kinda
you're
put me
telling
back.
us there's actually someone smarter than you that exists on this earth.
As far out as it may seem, yes.
You've heard it here first.
So Pat's saying that a person smarter than him failed at getting a job as a history teacher, therefore you were just deflated and decided, you know what, this isn't for me.
Right.
But Pat didn't realize, Ron, is that one friend he has that he's talking about is literally smarter than every other teacher on the planet. So Pat's comparison was a bad one.
Yeah.
Pat, you're smarter than 99.9% of the people on this earth. Yet the reason why he's not a history teacher today at Stoughton High is because he compared to himself to basically Einstein, a
Well,
genius.
that's also
But we wouldn't
point
have him
out.
here.
I mean, that's based on a subjective assessment. You don't
is
know
true.
that person. And furthermore, if that person is indeed smarter than you are, Pat, and they couldn't get a job, I don't want to tell you this, intelligence isn't necessarily what gets you recruited.
I mean, look at Ron.
Seriously, I've succeeded with maybe half of that. The point is, and again, I mean, I'm very happy you chose not to be a teacher. Otherwise, you wouldn't be Pat the Man Santos, producer extraordinaire right now.
That's very
However,
true.
I want you to understand and take a vote of confidence from me. that skill and success isn't based solely on intelligence, and you have a full bag of talents. I want
All
you
right,
to
let's
know
stop
that.
kissing his butt now, Ron, okay? Let's
No,
stop.
that
Because
story
I
made
think
me
we
a
have to
little
get-
sad.
We have to get into the raw. We want people listening to this podcast to know who their producer is. And here's who he is. Pat told us what his hobbies were. Pat, first question. Number one thing people
Shoot.
are asking me on Instagram, number one people are asking me on LinkedIn. Does Pat Santos watch Game of Thrones?
I do not.
He does not. Wow. That was
Curveball.
unexpected. Curveball. Why is that?
It just never floated my boat.
Okay, Pat, you're telling us, right, just to make sure here. Folks, if I gave you a picture of Pat, he likes to play video games and runs, parentheses runs, several Dungeons and Dragons sessions for his friends. Now, I don't even know what that means, that you run the sessions, but if I'm looking at this and I go, I have a guy who runs Dungeons and Dragons games for fun while playing video games, you would think Game of Thrones would sort of fit in.
That is the
I
genre.
have a feeling I know why he doesn't. Because why watch it when you could be it? You can play it instead of just watching someone else do it.
Well, maybe that's why he runs the games. He doesn't
Is
like
that
to be
why,
along for the
Pat?
ride.
You want to be more involved in the game with the dragons versus watching a dragon on television?
Maybe you like to control things. You don't like people making decisions for
What's
you.
the reason, Pat?
Honestly, it just never clicked with me. But I do enjoy running the games for my friends.
Okay, what is? Explain what that means to us.
So there's the role, quote unquote, Dungeon Master, Game Master, where they create the world that the players play in. And they kind of lead the stories and pretend to be the people that they talk to and all that jazz.
All right, so you do those, like, what do they call, furries or something, where they dress up as animals? Is that what that
I
is,
think
Ron?
you're thinking of a convention. That's a that's a specific type of convention.
Is
Yes,
that,
the
are
the
you
furries.
involved in those things as well?
Conventions, yes, not the furry kind, though.
Not the furry kind, but you are involved in the Dungeon Master conventions. Is there like a master's degree you can get in Dungeon Mastery?
Honestly, never looked.
Very interesting. I think it might be something he might want to look into.
Adam, hopefully he doesn't spend too much time doing that. We need at least a 20% producing our podcasts.
Right, so let's get back to Phia, right? So now we
Right.
know he loves video games, he loves Dungeons & Dragons, he loves to be the Dungeon Master.
He's a creative guy.
He's not only a podcast master, he's a Dungeon Master. From now on, we're going to call producer Pat Dungeon Master Santos. I think that's the right intro. But Pat, why have you been here for 13 years? And what have you learned as being the producer of this show that otherwise you would not have known?
Good question.
So the reason why I'm still here, companies just treat me very well. The workspace has always been friendly and very accommodating for everything that's ever come up for me.
Very nice. So we've been able to accommodate your Dungeon Mastery obsession.
Yes, very much so.
And what have you learned by being on these podcasts? I mean, you listen. At the end of the day, you have to listen to every single one multiple times.
It's true.
Very
What
true.
have you learned?
There's a backlog of things that I've learned. If it wasn't for here, I would know nothing about the health insurance industry at all, let alone the self-funding industry even existing.
All right, but how is that a good thing?
I'm able to shed light to other people that I know about how they could be saving potentially their businesses money on the health insurance side. As we know, it's a very costly industry, and any bit of money that can be saved can't be complained about.
So basically, what you're saying is, unlike what you hear on television, looking at Facebook or any other social media, you get a different viewpoint, let's say, of a more of an insider view as to really what the problem is with our health care system.
Yeah, that's correct.
You know, it's funny. One of the things, and Adam, when you were talking about how he's not into Game of Thrones, I mentioned it's because he doesn't like to go along for the ride. He wants to be in control. And I think what you're learning about health benefits, maybe that's sort of along the same line, that I feel like a lot of people are just along for the ride, right? Their employer implements a high deductible. There's nothing I can do, right? That's sitting and watching. But maybe as the dungeon master who's controlling your own destiny, you can also control or influence some control over your health benefit plan. And I think that hopefully people are learning from us and our podcast that these are things you can actually do. You can control your health spend. You can control your health benefits and your health care if you actually show a little interest and understand the way it works.
I think what the
Very true.
insiders realize, what people like us realize, I call us so-called experts in this business, is that the government doesn't have the answer for all. If anything, the answers are anti-government solutions. Yet, if you look at today's Suffolk University poll, by the way, Suffolk University does a lot of these political polls that are looked at by CNN. It's basically a leading polling university, and that's where I went to school. I think that's the only good thing that we've done at Suffolk. But what they said was 65% of all people that are voting Democratic, for example, Joe Biden is now the leader, 65% of them view Medicare for all as their number one issue. 2/3 of people that are going to vote Democrat think that that is the solution when they really don't know what the actual, I would say, business opportunities are, or free market opportunities are, when it comes to actually making your health benefits better.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Adam, because for right or wrong, I feel like a lot of people who are maybe considering voting Democrat are people who generally feel disenfranchised or like they have no control over their destiny. And as a result, they only have one of two options. Either put my well-being into the hands of a private entity whose only concern is greed and profit. That's the attitude, right or wrong. Or put it in the hands of a benevolent politician who's like me and loves me and cares about the common man. And given those two options, that's what they go for. What they don't understand or appreciate is that there are private options, employers who do care, probably more so than the politician does, about their specific employees and their families, because whether it's benevolence or just because healthy employees are more productive, that employer has more to gain than that politician in having those employees healthy and happy. But I think there's a disconnect on the part of the employee and the employer as far as what they can do to make these things happen.
Speaking of disconnect, Pat, if there was one thing that you want our listeners to know about you that they don't currently know, what would that be?
I've been picking up traveling lately.
Any specific traveling?
My most recent trip was to Japan. That was back in October of last year. This year is looking a little dry comparatively. But
why Japan? Is there a Asia fixation?
Back to history, I was very intrigued when I first learned about the Asian culture back in middle school, actually. That's when I got very curious about it. They had so many years of culture that no one really digs into. So it's always fascinated me how that culture's evolved and the history behind it.
So, I mean, I'm assuming that the customs is what intrigued you, the customs that they have and how those customs evolved over time?
Yeah, customs, the history, just how it's completely different from over here.
Right.
Yeah.
You can walk down the street there in the middle of the night and it is dead quiet. And same time over here, it is loud. Your senses are overloaded. It's a night and day contrast.
Very interesting. So, Pat, before we go, well, obviously, I think we're going to have to let Pat do the sound off. I think that's what we're being told by Pat and by our listening audience. But I want people to know, pretty soon we will be starting a whole new type of podcast, Ron. So we have our normal podcast.
Yep.
We have the Face of Phia.
We do.
But now, Ron, what people want to hear about is actual stories based on our employees and their dependents and their family members, their actual positive experiences working with the Phia Employee Benefit Plan. What are we going to call that, Ron?
Tales from the plan doc? I don't know.
Tales from the Plan Dog. We're going to have to think of what that might be. Folks, if you have an idea of what you think that should be called, I'm sure we'll come up with something great like we always do.
Yeah.
But that is an intriguing thing. I know Jen McCormick, our VP of Consulting, is going to come in.
She's got
I know
a
that,
story.
Ron, that you have a story that you want to share with us
I
as well.
sure do.
So stay tuned for that, folks. But Pat, you want to just close it off?
Send us off. That one I didn't prep for.
Well, try your best, buddy.
Well, I'll try my best. Thank you all for listening in. Tune in next time to our next episode of Empowering Plans with Phia Group. Signing out with us is Adam Russo, our CEO and co-founder, Ron Peck, our Senior VP and General Counsel, myself, Pat Santos, your producer master, and Dungeon Master. But that didn't really flow that well. Anyhow, until next time, have a great day.
And thank you for empowering your plans with
The Phia Group.
Have a great day.
Thank you.